Hey guys, so today I'm going to show you how to make your own beef tallow. Beef tallow is basically rendered fat from raw beef fat that you would get at your local butcher. It usually costs between 50 cents to $1.99 a pound. So if you're looking for it, I suggest you call your local butcher and see if they have it available for you. And if you want to make it, purchase it from them. Okay. You're also going to need a slow cooker or a large pot. You're going to need salt. You're going to need your beef fat. Of course, you're going to need a bowl. It could be stainless steel or glass. You're going to need some strainers. You're going to need some coffee filters. And you're going to need a ladle or a large spoon that you can use to collect the fat once it starts to collect on the top layer so that you could process it, okay? Or strain it, I mean. All right, so coffee filters you could get in the dollar store. And what you do is they go in the strainer like that, and this helps remove a lot of impurities and bits and pieces that you do not want to go in the fat. You're also going to need a knife and a couple of jars to store your fat in on the countertop. They will last there for maybe a month or two, and in the freezer they will last for 12 months, and that's only if you put them in a freezer safe container. So you're going to need, again, your strainers, your knife, your salt, a slow cooker, a large pot, a bowl, a container that holds up to 4 to 5 cups of water, your coffee filters, and that's pretty much it, okay? Um, but yeah, we're gonna get started with the fat, and as you can see, some of the fat has meat on it. I'm going to remove all of the meat as much as I can. If you leave the meat on there and process the fat with the meat on there, it is going to give it a stronger smell and taste. So if you don't want it to have that strong cow beefy taste and smell, remove the meat. Okay. I'm pretty sure you guys are hearing a small child in the background. That is my daughter. She's 4 years old now, so it's part of mom life. You're going to hear her. Okay. All right, so once you have the meat off of the fat, if there is any, you're gonna cut it up into small cubes like this, about less than a 1 inch piece of cube, a 1 inch piece, okay? And you're gonna chop it up as fine as you can. Please do not attempt to wash the fat. Don't do it. The process it's gonna go through will clean it out. I promise you, at the end of the video, you will see how this is all done. And again, like I said, if you do not want it to have a strong smell or taste, remove any visible meat that is on there. If you have pets like a cat, dog, anything that eats meat, now you have treats for them. You can add it to their food, okay? All right, so once I have everything done, I'm going to add it to my crock pot. And if you don't have a crock pot, you could add it to your large pot. You're going to add in about 1/4 cup of salt. I use kosher salt. And then I'm going to add in 4 cups of water. Okay? It may not look like a lot of water when you first do it, but it is enough, I promise. I have about, I want to say, 8 to 9 pounds plus worth of beef fat in this crock pot. I wasn't able to fit everything that I got from the butcher, so I just saved the rest for a later day. All right, once you get it in there, you're gonna put your crock pot on for 4 hours on high, put your lid on, and you're gonna come back maybe every hour and a half to 2 hours to check on it. If you plan on doing this for yourself, I suggest you letting this go overnight. So starting the process, say Friday night, and then you can finish up Saturday morning, okay? Um, just so you don't have to, spend too much time and it doesn't feel like too much work for you. But I did this during the day. I started at around 11 a.m. and I was done around 8, not 8, maybe 9 p.m. Okay, so if you want to do this overnight, definitely let it go overnight. So this is my first check-in with the pot. This is about almost an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours later after I started it, and I'm gonna do my first stir. Okay, if you let this go overnight, you're not really going to need to stir it. You could do that in the morning when you get up. All right, but because I'm awake and I'm doing this during the day, I will stir it every about hour and a half to 2 hours. And you're going to notice that some of the pieces are going to start changing color. They're going to start having a yellow appearance or beige color. Okay, So, and that's fine. You want it to get to the point where all the pink and red starts to go away. This is my second check-in, and as you guys could see, the fat is starting to collect on the top. I believe this is maybe 2 hours and some change later at my second check-in, and I do another stir, checking to see, if everything is starting to heat up, if anything still looks pink, which clearly some stuff still looks pink. So we're not ready yet. Okay, so we're just gonna give this a stir, cover it, and leave it alone. It's not ready yet. All right, this is an optional tool to get. I've had this immersion blender since 2013, 2014, and I'm just gonna do a quick little blend in here. You only want to use this when all the fat has lost its pink red color. Okay, you don't want to use this while it's still pink and red because it's going to jam up your immersion blender. At this point, it has warmed up, it has softened up, so it can blend easily, and it's gonna kind of look like some type of cream of mushroom type of soup situation. And don't panic, it is fine, don't worry. This is going to help speed up the process, I promise. All right, so it's going to look like this, and you're going to start checking it again if you're doing this during the day like me, and you're going to notice the fat is going to start to puddle on the top. That's how oils and fat and things like that work with water. The fat and the oil will slowly come to the top and puddle to the top. We still have 23 minutes left, but I'll check again in about 10 to 11 minutes, and you'll notice there's going to be way more fat on top of this slurry, this little fat mixture that we have. Okay, so as the fat is heating up, it is slowly coming up to the surface where it will be easy for you to collect it. Okay, so don't worry about it looking like cream of mushroom soup or some sort of nasty soup or whatever. It's all part of the process, and it's to speed things up a bit more for you if you're doing this during the day. This is definitely something I would do on a Saturday or a Sunday when I'm home, and it's kind of like a chill day, and I just come in the kitchen and check every couple hours, make sure this thing is stirred and whatever, and if it's time to process, I will process. All right, so now we are at processing time, our first part. You're gonna get your bowl set up with your strainer. You're gonna put your coffee filter in there, and as you guys could see, the fat is settling on top. Okay, it is really settling on there. We have about an inch worth of fat on top, and you're going to use your ladle and slowly collect the fat off the top. You're gonna kind of skim off the top of the layer of blended fat, and you're going to add this to your coffee filter that's in the strainer that is above your bowl, and it is going to filter through the coffee filter and fall into the bowl. I'm using a glass bowl so you guys could see exactly how much I'm getting and the color and what it should look like. You do not want your oil, fat, tallow to have a dark orange color or a brown color, because that means the heat is too high and you are overcooking it. By doing so, you're destroying all the health benefits that the beef tallow has within its fat. Okay, so as you guys could see, it's filtering through. Don't worry too much about some water getting in there or some of this kind of brown part of it getting in there. That's fine, it's all gonna go away towards the end. If for whatever reason you don't have coffee filters, you can use a flour sack. I do recommend washing these before you use them, and I fold it in half. The only issue with using this is you're gonna constantly have to wash them. So once you filter the fat through here, okay, the fat will filter out really nicely, just like the coffee filter, but it's going to get clogged up, which is, which makes sense. Okay, so what you're going to do is pick it up, squeeze out the fat as much as you can, and then what's inside of it, you're going to actually put that back in the pot, but only in one corner. So have a dedicated spot to put back the fat that hasn't all the way rendered. Put it back in the corner. It may look like it's all the way rendered, but it's not. All right, so here I go in with my smaller strainer just to kind of keep my cloth from clogging. So that's just one way of doing it. So you can either use the coffee filter with the strainer. You can use the flour sack with the strainer. You can even just use the smallest strainer by itself. It's pretty much up to you and your comfort level, or how clean and pure you want this tallow fat to be. That's completely up to you. Okay, but there are other processes that will be done to make this tallow fat clean and get rid of all of this brownish kind of soupy consistency that you see. So I did go back in with my immersion blender. I'm sorry you saw my back at the time. I went back in and I was able to blend it and make a finer consistency of the fat that was still in there. And at this point, the fat is like a beige color. It's almost like cat food color, right? And don't worry, just leave it alone like before, and the fat will slowly make its way to the top. And I did add another 4 hours to the crock pot. So it's still on high, added an additional 4 hours. So now I'm watching it every hour and a half to keep an eye on it. Once I see fat starting to collect on the top, I will start processing it, but I need a certain amount to collect, like a large amount. So as you guys could see, as the clips go by, you'll see a little bit, then you'll see a little bit more than a little bit, and now you're seeing a whole lot. So then I'm gonna go in with my wood spoon to kind of measure and see how much fat I have in there, and if I could start collecting a larger amount. So we're at 3 hours and 36 minutes. This is our second time doing the 4 hours. So that's why I said it took a little longer to do this. So I go in with my wood spoon. And I'm just kind of checking. I'm using the spoon to kind of feel if where I could feel where the fat is underneath, because the fat will, the liquefied fat will float on top of the spent fat cells that are there. Okay, the spent fat cells still have a good amount of water in them, so that's why they'll kind of go to the bottom, but they'll still float on top of the water layer because they still have fat in them. So just something for you to know. All right, it may look like you got it all, but there's a whole lot still in there, and I tried my best to get at least 90% of it. Okay, so here you guys see me using just the strainer without the coffee filter, and I'm actually using the small filter and putting in large amounts of the extra blended fat in there, and whatever's collected in the large strainer, I put it back in there. I let it continue on, and as it continues on, the fat will still keep collecting on top, and I'll still keep taking it out and putting it back in the bowl. Okay, or adding it to the bowl, not putting it back, but adding it to the bowl. Okay, so you see what I mean? It keeps on giving more fat because there is more fat to give. Okay, so that's why I keep putting do not stir. You want to leave this alone after you have did your first initial stirs. When the process first started, you're gonna keep your stirring down to like a minimum. Okay, you only stir after you have used the immersion blender, and then you just leave it alone. And this is pretty much what happens. The water is at the bottom, the solid kind of blended fat is in the center, and the liquefied fat goes to the top. If you rewind, go back to the clip of the container with the 3 layers, you'll see the fat slowly moving to the top. All right, you guys. So here I'm just using the fine strainer at this point because the fat is like almost clear to the top, and what is left, what is spent, is starting to look like this, almost like a cat food, dog food consistency. Okay, so this is all the fat that I got out of the crock pot, and I was actually able to get more fat out of what was left in the crock pot. I was able to get another 6 to 8 ounces out of that. I didn't film that part, but I was able to do that. I had to heat it up again in a smaller container with water, and I was able to get another 6 to 8 ounces. Okay, so here I'm using my strainer, my fine strainer again, and make sure you wash this just right under the sink with hot water as you're using it. Don't worry if it's wet. If it's wet, it's fine. You just have to turn it over and let the water go through it and remove any of the impurities that are stuck in the strainer, and that's it. You don't have to do soap and water every single time. All right, just warm water and rinse it off. So once I have my fat separated the first time, I'm going to put it in the fridge, let it solidify, and now we're going to do our I would call this a water bath or water process. I'm not sure what the professionals call it. But basically, what you're doing here is once the fat has solidified, you're going to put it in a pot of water. I use a little bit over 3.5 quarts of water in this pot and added the fat, the solid parts of the fat, even the part that is creamy, but do not add the water, okay? So it totally depends on how long you leave it in the fridge. These are two separate clips. This one, I left the fat in the fridge overnight and the water was able to become like a gelatin. Okay, and then on the right side, it wasn't in the fridge too long, but it did solidify enough for me to separate it. And I'm just gonna add this to the water. So this is salted water again. You're gonna add in maybe 2 tablespoons of salt in here. And again, I'm using kosher salt. You're going to melt the fat down in here on low heat, okay? Not high, low. You just want this to melt. You do not want this to have like a roaring boil, okay? And you're going to collect any impurities that are on the top with the fine strainer and remove it. Just like I said, rinse your strainer out in the sink and you can use it again and remove any impurities that come to the top or the surface of the fat. All right, so this only takes maybe, I want to say 10, not 10 minutes, I want to say 15 minutes, maybe 15-20 minutes to heat up the fat, to let it melt and to let whatever is in it to sink to the bottom. You're only going to stir this fat in the beginning part, okay, of the heating process, and then you're just going to leave it alone, and then all the solids, impurities and all of that are going to sink to the bottom, and then there's going to be like an in-between area. You're going to see it as I'm skimming and removing the fat that is on the top. All right, so as I get closer to the in-between, so the liquefied fat and the solid and then what's under the water, see how this looks? There's still a layer of fat on here, so I'm able to skim that off and put it in my strainer with my coffee filter in it, and that's pretty much it. Try your best not to get too much of the watery, slushy mixture, but I got as much as I could out of there, and I'm back down to 3 quarts of water. So I was able to get almost all the fat out of there with a tiny bit of water, which is fine. It's okay. Um, but this is the almost finished product. If you want to use this for skincare, I would suggest you process this in water maybe once or twice more to completely make it like 100% odorless. But at this point, it doesn't really have too much of a smell. It almost smells like butter to me, like a grass-fed butter. That's how it smells to me. It doesn't smell like a cow. It doesn't smell like farm animal like the one I bought. It smells like a straight cow. If you open it, it smells like a farm. Okay, but this is how it's going to look the next day after you've put it in the fridge. Make sure you put your plastic wrap on there and put it in the fridge. And I'm just doing a little comparison between the one I purchased and the one that I have made myself. So at this point, you can cut it up, put it in freezer safe Ziploc bags or containers that are safe for the freezer, and you could put some in a container for the countertop or the cabinet for when you're ready to cook. I use this for breakfast. I use this for regular cooking. You can use it for baking instead of butter. There's many uses to it. I even whip some up to make some cream for my son who has eczema, and he really likes it. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I really hope it was helpful. I don't know if I made it too complicated for you. I hope it wasn't, because it truly is not a complicated process. And I did make a mistake by saying to do this overnight on high. So if you want to do this overnight in a crock pot, just do it on your low heat setting, and you could do it overnight, and in the morning majority of the fat should be rendered for you. And if you want, you can remove the parts that are still solid, blend it up, and then render that again in your crock pot, and just follow the steps and collect the fat off the top. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, give this a thumbs up, and I'll see you very soon in another video. Bye guys. Mommy.